All right. Good morning, guys. Welcome to another rainy Sunday. It is indeed rainy Sunday. Rainy Sunday is the day that, as a kid, when it was just too much rain to go outside and play, I would get a whole bunch of big stack of comic books and jump right on that bed and read them as I heard the rain hitting the roof all day and things like that. Perfect reading weather. It is January 22nd, 2023 for you people in the future watching this. And I hope you guys have had a great weekend. Real quick, no show last week. Hey, morning, John. No show last week. Send good vibes to Mrs. Howlermouse, if you will. We had three different visits to two different emergency rooms last weekend, plus a doctor hospital last Monday on a holiday, and she ended up having kidney stone surgery yesterday. And she insisted that after a week of I guess taking care of her, as I hate to put it that way, she insisted that I go ahead and go to the comic book auction where I'm going to show you the glory of everything that I bought today and stuff. So Cinder, she's recovering well. Let's put it that way, recovering well. And I actually got like 9 hours of sleep last night after getting 27 hours of sleep in 6 days with things that were going on with us and stuff. So just goes to show you, you got to just plow through and keep a good attitude through a lot of bad stuff, and life seems to give you a good bounce for doing it, I think. So anyway, some great stuff here, right? But yesterday was a comic book auction at in Dublin, Virginia, and it was a bittersweet auction, which I'll tell you why. But this was through Valley Auctions LLC in Dublin, Virginia, right? Scott Connor, and for you guys that remember Scott Connor when we did the show a majority of the time here, Cavern of Chaos, the talk show, Scott was one of the original panelists, and we've been friends for well over a decade, I think. Who knows how long now and things like that. But we had a friend, and if I was going to put things on a level, of things like that, um, he was my friend, but he was Scott's good friend. He had passed away last year, and he had a massive collection that he'd been building up. He worked for a community college in Dublin, Virginia, New River Valley Community College, and I used to do panels and stuff at what I'm about to tell you about. But he started a free comic book convention there that is fantastic, and hopefully they will keep it going at the college. And it was fantastic. A lot of vendors. They even had guests. Uh, just Mike Urey, Case, who used to draw the Doom Patrol with Grant Morrison when he was writing it. A couple guys, one blank, but there's a lot of local guys that live in the Virginia, Carolina area that would come in. A lot of great vendors. I would do panels there about Doctor Strange or whatever the Marvel movie was that was coming out and things like that. Uh, great, great great guy, and he had a massive comic book collection that he built up. This guy was doing cons in the '70s. He actually met me when I was at a Withville Comic Con years ago, well over a decade ago, where I was doing a panel on Jack Kirby, and he was in the front row, and I was all professional. I had my Jack Kirby comics and Commandy, and was talking about Jack Kirby. And he came up to me afterwards, said I did a good job, and then he mentioned he met Kirby back in the '70s, and I was like, you should be up here doing this, right? So we'd go to his house, and his whole house was like a museum. He had everything organized. He watched classic movies. He had all the original movie posters, so things like Fire and Ice, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and all sorts of things like that. And then in the living room section, he had like a Doc Savage section, and Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan section, and the rest of his house was nothing but comics and arranged and everything. So when he passed away, his whole entire family just wanted to throw the stuff out, and people swarmed in that knew Gary from all over. Were like, don't do that. And they did the first set of they did it in three auctions finally after they went through everything. The first two auctions were online, and I know the first one brought in anywhere between $32,000 and $35,000. Don't know what the second one brought in, but this was the last one, and they did it in person. And there was a few things I wanted because it was Gary's. You know what I mean? It's a bittersweet feeling. And the auction actually went really well. Ended up having a great time as Scott and I saw each other for the first time in real life, not virtually. in years since the pandemic and stuff, so which was wild. All right, so that's the backstory. This is a good friend, Gary Bryant's, some of his collection that was auctioned off, and I was able to have a few things that are going to be Gary's. And I'll talk about the auction as I go through the books and stuff, right? Now, before I get to the auction stuff, I'm going to show you a few things that came in eBay. I'm going to give time for people to get here because I am super early today. I mean, I was in bed by 9, up by 6:30 on a Sunday. I'm like, what's up with that? You know, already been to McDonald's. All right, so as I've talked about, there's a lot of things going on with my collection where I'm not getting that much new stuff, and I'm sort of filling in gaps and completing these runs of books and things like that that I've meant to for quite a while, right? And little lo and behold, a few things seems like I did it just in time. Okay, right? So since the last time that we have talked, I'm now needing 2 issues to complete my epic illustrated run. I have a handful of books that I've had since I was a kid that were in the house. A couple of them have been replaced because they actually disintegrated from being read. And then I've got I got probably the possibly 2 most expensive books to complete your epic illustrated run. But I got these for a steal on eBay. I'm coming in. Everybody's looking for other things. Thank you, speculators in your channels, for steering people towards FOMO and reactionary things. Won't get into that, right? But anyway, ended up getting this. This is Epic Illustrated. These are both through eBay. 2 different. Got them from 2 different sellers, if you will, and got them for a steal, to be honest, right? Now, this one is probably, I would put fine, F-I-N-E, just because of discoloring. Otherwise, everything is great about it, right? Just a little bit of discoloring, right? This could be mint if it had stayed white and had not started yellowing and things, right? But this is Epic Illustrated number 3, okay? This book popped several years ago because they were talking about a Dreadstar movie. Dreadstar is, of course, created by Jim Starlin, who a lot of muggles out there have, discovered over the last decade and a half because of the Marvel movies. Creator of Thanos and several other characters, and Guardians of the Galaxy, Gamora, things like that. And so the movie never happened, and from what I've heard, it may be dead in the water. But this was the first appearance in 1980 of Vanth Dreadstar. Okay, and it's just, what's so sad about it is that it's a great read. Okay, the Metamorphosis Odyssey or whatever took off, and it was just fantastic. This is the era of Star Wars, so if you like the sci-fi action stuff, that would be something you want to check out, but it's pure Starlin. It is not a Star Wars ripoff. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, so number 3 popped, and it was just amazing how some of the prices I saw for it, right? And then the last issue. Now, this one I understand. As they get closer to ending the series, the print runs back in the day usually got lower and lower. And, buddy, they went out with a bang. And there's a lot of infamous stuff that went on with Epic Illustrated if you were there at the time, because this was chapter 9 of John Byrne's The Last Galactus story that was serialized in this, right? And there were several chapters yet to be. So you didn't get to finish this fantastic story that John Byrne was writing and drawing about the Last Galactus story. It has Bernie Wrightson, Arthur Pseudonym, Alan Moore, Rick Veitch. Just all the talent on this is just amazing for the final issue, number 34. Of course, this was a quarterly book, so this was 1986, February of 86. So this is probably closer to December of 85 that it came out. So this is just 2 fantastic ones. I need number 8, number 25, and we're done. And I'll take my time getting them, right? 2 other things. And one of these books, apparently, I just got on the ball just in time. I'll show that one first because I want to say it's a ridiculous story of what I've found out, but maybe there's something to it. I don't want to dismiss it until I do a research or someone is asked. I don't know, right? But there's a series in the 80s that came out called Manhunter, right? And I liked it when it came out, right? And I still have the first 6 issues, right, that I've replaced. Let's put it that way. Some of the books I wasn't bagging and boarding back in the 80s and things like that, but I got on there, so I figured I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this Manhunter series. And what sparked this was getting some of these Suicide Squad trades where it crossed over. John Ostrander wrote the Manhunter series. John Ostrander also was writing Suicide Squad, and he ended up crossing over the Manhunter. So I wanted the Manhunter appearances. And apparently, this Flash 22, probably about a week after I won the auction, because I got it for like $1.99 or something. Apparently, this kind of took off because they think it's an homage. Uh, it was used as the inspiration to Amazing Spider-Man 316 with the Venom cover, where Venom is over Spider-Man. Spider-Man's laying on the ground. Venom's right there. The first cover appearance of Spider-Man. Maybe it's Amazing Spider-Man 318, 316, somewhere around there. But for some reason, the speculators seem to think that this is the original cover. This is the cover that inspired Todd McFarlane to do that. I don't know. If there's a story, that'd be great. And the other thing I got is that I don't know where this disappeared in my collection, and I'm actually not going to leave feedback for the eBay seller. I'm not going to leave negative stuff, right? But he said this was like mint, super mint, right? And I don't know why this is not in my collection because I bought it when it came out. But this is the Mighty Thor 383, an untold tale of the Secret Wars that ties into it. That was just fantastic. And he said this was like mint, and I get it. And that corner is just bashed in, and it's a little bit discolored. So that kind of bothers me that it was mint, and I actually paid $2-3 extra for it. There you go. What are you going to do? So anyway, that's the eBay stuff, and now we're going to get to the auction stuff. Hey, Dennis Hayes is here. Good morning. Okay, so we've given people enough time to show up for you people in the future that are like, get on with it. So anyway, the auction was fantastic. I just about didn't go. I was super tired. I was worried about the wife recovering from her surgery. She insisted I went, which makes her just, fantastic. I'll show you something else in a minute that I got on eBay. And so I went out there, and Scott and I had been chatting on, back and forth in text to be sure that, we're going to get there. So the auction was held from 10 to 5. You could get there at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock to go around the entire warehouse to see what was left of Gary's collection, and it was immaculate, people. There's people who showed up just to take pictures of his collection. We're talking about Herculoid. We're talking about toys, movie memorabilia, Dave Stevens, Frank Frazetta, original art, Spider-Man posters from 1966. I cannot go over the toys. The thing that impressed me the most was his Herculoids toy collection. If you guys could go back to the back in the day, you would get 3 sets of toys that completed the entire Herculoids family, if you will, and they each came with a stand that you would connect and be able to put everything up, display it. Okay, the boxes alone go for $300 to $400 online. All 3 boxes were there. All the toys were there. That kind of stuff. We're talking about high price stuff. Tons of comic book boxes, tons of signed stuff. People were just salivating left and right. And I was a little concerned because this was my friend's collection. And I'm hearing people, you just hear the greed in their voice. And then there was people who weren't collectors, and you were just sort of like, they're not going to appreciate what they got, let alone take care of it. All that went away by about 10:30. A lot of great people showed up. People drove over 6 hours from Cleveland to be there. Met a guy named Bob, and I'll talk about Bob through all this. He was an awesome guy to just watch through this, right? So the one thing that I wanted, I went through and I went around looking at the auctions. There's actually one thing I wanted, and these are the auction number lots, okay? And these were the things that there were so many people there. I knew this stuff was going to go for a high price, and I had the money to really get in there and grab this stuff, but I was like, this is your friend's collection, you're getting stuff to keep. And I just sort of had an honor code in my head. There was no greed here and stuff, right? But one of the things I wanted for personal reasons that I ended up getting, and I think I got this for $20. I could not believe it. Let me make sure. Yeah, $20. Ended up getting this for $20 in an auction where things were going for way more than that, right? Ended up getting this, right? Both of these, but this was the main one I wanted. I believe this is from 1988. That's a Sienkiewicz cover. This is the hardback collection of the history of DC, of the DC universe. This is what Marv Wolfman and George Perez put together after Crisis on Infinite Earths. They did a two issue story uh, that you could buy. Uh, Square bound books. I don't want to say they were Baxter, but anyway, they're square bound books. And George Perez, Marvel Wolfman wrote the new timeline where they had gotten rid of the multiverse and it was one universe, one Earth, and they take us from Anthro all the way to Commandy and things like that, right? But there's a lot of, and this is the hardback version. Now, this is before there were like trades. Trades were a huge thing, right? So first of all, it's a Sienkiewicz cover, and it is also signed by George Marvol and George Perez. I was at the con where Gary did this probably back in 2013. That's why I knew he had this. Okay, this is from Graffiti. This book is beyond beautiful. Gary also kept the postcard that came with it, to where you can get this history of the DC Universe poster. And it's not going to focus here, but you can look this up with collectors and people in the know. Each one of those DC characters is drawn by a different artist, and it goes back years. And this was a coveted art piece, and they also put out the poster. So he kept that. You could buy it. But the thing about this is, of course, it's take off the dust cover here. Graffiti Designs is going to come up again in this, right? Hardback book, History of the DC Universe. And it comes with several editorials, an introduction, filling the void. We get like some prose, we get some history. I can't wait to read this. But it's a lot of commentary on what was going on at the time that you cannot get anywhere else but here. The Dark Detective, talking about the legacy of the Batman with some original art. I believe that's Dick Sprang. Joe Kubert. Just a lot of great stuff in here. Not just a comic book. You use only skin deep. And this was sort of like executive reading when you were a collector in the 80s. Okay. I mean, the stuff common now with what we have. But the greatest thing is that coveted piece I told you about. You'll see this page with the silhouettes, and it's got the numbers, and it has the guide to let you know what artist drew what. So what folds out in the middle of this is that art piece, that poster that you can order. Like Joe, I think Neil Adams actually drew that creation of Dead Man. Come on, come on. Adam Strange is by Carmine Infantino. George Perez drew Wonder Woman. Jack Kirby did his Dark Side. This is all one piece of art. So now I don't have to squint my eyes online to look at it. So yeah. So History of the DC Universe. And this is some of George Perez. It just blew my mind that George Perez, in my mind, after doing 12 issues of Crisis on Infinite Earths, drawing all those characters, I figured he would be burnt out and would need time to recover, and he absolutely did not. He knocked this out of the ballpark. Okay, I'm going to show you a few things here to show you why I absolutely love this. Let me find the Batman page. But anyway, just to give you, well, I'll find it later. But anyway, just to give you an idea, you know, we go through the timeline in the introduction of all these characters and how they all fit in the universe. You got your Charlton characters mixed in with your DC. And he stylized each one to exactly how that character should be and how they feel. Some of the World War II stuff here. I mean, look what he did just with Orion. A throwaway book of the 80s, The Tales of Ancient Atlantis. You know, George Perez put his heart and soul in everything. So this was cool to get. I'm probably going to do a quick video showing the stuff a little bit faster. Okay, and then we got this, Jerry Ordway. I don't know what year this came out. A Modern Masters volume, number 13, the Modern Masters series. And it's all about Jerry Ordway. And I met Jerry Ordway myself several years ago at Baltimore Con. So there's no telling when Gary had this signed by Jerry Ordway. So that came with the lot. That was very cool. Very cool to find. Put that to the side. Okay. And then I'm probably going to be showing this too soon. But the other thing that I wanted was Watchmen related. Surprise, right? But I'd been in Gary's house and I eyeballed this and I didn't really bother him about it. But if it's exactly what I thought it was, I've already done the research. I was up at 6:30 this morning making sure this was the actual book. But I got two pieces of Watchmen stuff. And this was like just it for me, right? Basically, I've got the Watchmen art portfolio that Gary had that came out in the 80s. Not the French one, but it has the French covers, it has the promotional posters, and it has the American covers. So this magnificent piece of Watchmen memorabilia, this portfolio, you will slide these out, and each folder, it has 3 folders, okay, and each folder has prints in it, these fantastic prints. The first one has all 12 issues of the covers, all 12 covers, okay, by Ordway. The second one are the French covers for the Watchmen, I guess. And I cannot wait to go through these, but these are Dave Gibbons' art that we didn't see in America. And I'm assuming there's 12 of those. I don't know. I'll have to go through here and look. I don't think there's quite 12, but just fantastic. I'll probably do a video all on its own. Okay. And the third one is the one that I thought was very cool because I actually loved the advertisement, but it's the promotional advertisements that you saw in black and white, announcing, letting you know the Watchmen were coming. So that is just fantastic. What did I? Okay, so this was part of a Watchmen lot. As I said, it's part of a Watchmen lot. So that was fine to have. But the second part of this, and this is exactly what I thought it was, is that you see this black slipcase, beautiful edition of Watchmen. Okay, hardback. Okay, I hope that's showing up. A black on black smiley face, Watchmen with the blood on the eye. Okay, pristine, all shiny. Hard black. It's a leather imitation, though, if you will. And you open this up, and this is a hardback of the Watchmen. And I have a Watchmen video. I have all sorts of supplemental material of the Watchmen, other books, watching the Watchmen, the movie stuff, portraits, all sorts of things. This also comes with a section called Minutes. And in the Minutes, we have other material talking about the Watchmen. It has scripts. It has other things that the original pitch, I guess, to the Watchmen. It's just fantastic stuff. And some other artwork, some of the French stuff, the covers. And I did my research. This is exactly what I thought it was, because this will probably be brought out maybe 1 or 2 other times. But this is the original 1988 first edition graffiti slipcase cover of the Watchmen hardback, 1,000 made. There was only 1,000 of these. Okay. I don't know why it's not worth more money, probably because of the glut of Watchmen trades and reprints and hardbacks and everything coming out, the glut of Watchmen stuff. But very lucky to have this, very lucky to have found this as a huge Watchmen fan. Something I never thought I would ever get my hands on. But yes, there's only 1,000 of those made. That is the one. So, yeah. Very happy to have that. And Gary, it's gone to a good home. I guarantee you. Okay. So moving on to some more fun stuff here to get through here. All right, there was one. This was an impulse buy, right? This was $20 lot, right? I got this for $20 as well, and I kind of laughed when I got it because I had this game when I was a kid. But before I show you the game, this is going to be a hint of what's coming, right? But this was part of the lot. Alfred E. Newman, Mad Magazine, Superheroes. I don't know, Justice League, Just Us League of Stupid Heroes. But they came out with a series of figures years ago where Alfred E. Newman dressed up as all the DC heroes. Of course, there's the Aquaman one, you know. And this was very cool. This is from 1998, but this is a Alfred E. Newman action figure where he's upside down and the "What Me Stupid," all that stuff, right? Okay, so yeah, I have these. Not sure what to say there. Some people may be looking at it going, "That is so cool." I'm on the other hand, just sort of like, "Okay, great," but I had to have this, right? Because the object of this game is to lose, right? The first one to lose. But we had this, and my brother and I played this over and over and over for years. The 1979 Mad Magazine edition board game from Parker Brothers, and that is a Jack Davis cover on that. Right there's his signature. You know, yeah, it's in that guy right there. If you can't see it. So yeah, my brother and I used to play this a lot. I cannot believe we probably had this in the house, probably like for about 5 years, and I guarantee we pulled this thing out all the way from like 80 to about 85. I guarantee it regularly. So throughout the year and stuff right there. Don't know whatever happened to it. It just sort of disappeared. So, and that was kind of cool. All right. Okay. And for $40, I got one lot of short box of comics, an incomplete box, but there was only two boxes I was going for, but this is the one I really wanted, and that heat is hidden in there. Okay. All right, making some room here. So what was in this box? This box was full of some very cool stuff, right? Let me get straight to the comics. First of all, I found this. I bagged this stuff last night when I got home. Yeah, we got a Blue Ribbon special. This is The Ghost and Other Tales, 13 Classic Stories. Neil Adams, Bernie Wrightson, Mike Coluto, Wally Wood stuff. Yes, they're reprints, but these I love these digest books. I still have a list of the ones that I had as a kid. I don't know if you like Frank Frazetta, but I don't think these are very rare. But I got two sets of the two issues that DC put out in the '80s. Frank Frazetta's Shining Knight stuff that he did back in the '50s. Okay. Like I said, there's two sets of those that I bagged and boarded. And like I said, his collection was full of Frank Frazetta stuff, right? So these just happened to be in a box, right? Mint condition, two sets. And then what made me chuckle is that I felt like maybe Gary might have been smiling down on me a little bit, chuckling there, because I'm a huge Al Williamson, huge Blade Runner fan. And I already have this stuff, but it just kind of cracks me up. But now I have the direct market editions but here's the 2-issue adaptation of the Blade Runner movie with Harrison Ford, one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie ever. But it was originally in a Marvel Super Special. What they did is they had Marvel Super Specials for the Indiana Jones movies and the Labyrinth movie. And it was a series. It was a Marvel magazine that was a series and stuff, right? And this is number 22. And for some reason, this is the only one they made that was not in magazine size. It's actual comic book size, but it has this Jim Steranko cover. And it's the Marvel Super Special 22 of Blade Runner that they split up. They would do these Marvel Super Specials, and then for the newsstand, they would turn them into comics, breaking them up in 2-part stories, right? They did it Dark Crystal. They did a 3-issue one for Dune, 4 issues for Return of the Jedi, so on and so on. And I bagged these. I was like, Gary's smiling on me. I was meant to get that. We had several talks about Blade Runner and Philip K. Dick and things, right? Also in this, and I'm going to take a little jab at the spectators and stuff, right? But this is Amazing Heroes Preview 1984, right? I thought this was cool to find. I think I found this in this box. So there's some stuff I stopped at an antique store. So anyway, but this is the 1984 preview issue, and this came out probably November of 1983, right? But why did I pick this up? Well, first of all, I'll pick these up no matter what. But this one is special with the preview issue, right? This was announcing the comics that were coming out, and you were going to start having American Flag and the Blue Devil, John Byrne's second Doctor Doom, if you will. I'll just leave it at that. Delgado, Judge Dredd, the Rocketeer, She-Hulk joined the Fantastic Four, but it also is announcing that in 2 months, Secret Wars would be starting. And in Secret Wars, we all know that right around the time that Secret Wars started, we had Amazing Spider-Man 252, Spectacular Spider-Man something like 90 or whatever, and all this stuff like that. But Spider-Man and Marvel team up. Spider-Man debuted in his black symbiote costume. And I cracked up because of the speculators always going to preview books and all that stuff, trying to say those are real first appearances and not in the comics. Well, it was announced way ahead of time in several news publications of comics that the black costume was coming. And this is Amazing Heroes. So predating Secret Wars #8 by like 9 months, predating the original Spider-Man books, Amazing Spider-Man, by about 3 or 4 months. There's your black Spider-Man costume. This is the 5th appearance of the black Spider-Man costume before it popped up in comics. Okay, so if you want to be in the speculation market and stuff, there's your 5th appearance of the symbiote costume before it came out in comics. That's a high collectible right there for you, buddy. Oh, good stuff. All right, now let's get to the comics here. Let's just get to the point here. So I'm just going to show a lot of what was in here are older reprints or things like that, or caliber books that I don't know about. A lot of this stuff has Frank Frazetta reprints, Al Williamson reprints from the 50s, some Jack Kirby, Joe Simon stuff that they has, it's 3D classic Star Wars stuff in here. So are we all there? Are we still there? All right. No damage. Nobody dead. It's a good day. So what I found in here was like, this box is cookie cutter made for me, right? I mean, it just is. The stuff I found it at excites me. I think it's wonderful stuff. I think it's good stuff. And a couple months ago, there was a line of comics from King's Features who did the Sunday strips. They had the Phantom, Flash Gordon, Prince Valiant, that sort of thing, the old strips. Well, there's a bunch of King comics in here. It came out in the late 60s. Here's Prince Valiant. It doesn't have a number on it, but it has a backup story with Flash Gordon in it, right? So these are from the 60s, probably 60s to the 70s, right? And then lo and behold, Gary has a bunch of King Flash Gordon books. This is exactly what I wanted. So I paid $40 for this box, and just one of these comics is worth $40. I'll go through. These are just fantastic. And back then, King Comics had the license to do the Flash, put out their Flash Gordon books, of course. And then they went to Charlton, and they kept the same numbering. Okay, so the Flash Gordon books kept the same numbering from company to company. That was a thing back then. When Dale and Gold Key had the Tarzan books, they put out quite a few of them. And then when the DC Comics got the licensing to do Tarzan, they kept the same numbering from Gold Key so it wouldn't confuse people. So that was kind of cool, man. So yeah, they went from Charlton. And some of these are, like I said, worth a little bit of money if you're into this especially this one, Attack of the Locust Men, right? So they went from Charlton to Whitman. And when they went to Whitman, there's probably about 4 of these books that are worth $60 to probably $80 if I had to guess. They fluctuate, guys. I don't keep up with it all the time, right? Because you could only get 1 or 2 of these issues in the 3-packs. They used to have the 3-packs that were like 3 comic books for $1, and it came with 3 of these books, and you could tell because they had the W on them, right? So when they went to Whitman, they continued with the numbering, the gorgeous painted covers. And these came out right around the time that Star Wars took off. Star Wars rejuvenated. I've always said in life, I lived a life where, I lived in 2 eras, before Star Wars and after Star Wars, right? So Flash Gordon was a huge influence on Star Wars. I won't go into how much of an influence. And they had the Saturday morning cartoon come out around this time that Whitman, Gold Key were putting these out. And you know, it was Flash Gordon mania. And then in 1980, the movie came out, and that'll be pertinent here in just a minute. So now we're in the Gold Key. Beautiful covers. These are like in mint. Some of those Charlton comics are pretty rough. Shapes that I saw. Here we go, riding the snake. Flash Gordon is riding the snake, a la Dune. I love that cover. Just so to have all these Flash Gordon books just blows my mind. And there's a little bit more here. Pterodactyls. I mean, these are just fantastic. We're in the late 70s now. This is probably about a $60 book, because if I remember right, okay, Flash Gordon number 30. Okay. No, it's not because it's a short cover that it's rare. Okay. There are people that I've known over the years, they collect only short covers, or they make a point to get short covers. They would have a stack of comic books, and if they were going to prioritize what they were going to buy, it would be the short covers. So Flash Gordon number 30, if I remember right, if I go by the lore, if I go by the word of mouth, if I go by the scholars above me when I was 10 years old, this one is rare because you could only get this issue in one of those 3-packs that I referenced. Okay. This was not on any newsstand. Okay. Supposedly, if I'm gonna have to do my research, but yeah, but this one is super rare because it is only in a 3-pack. That was it. Okay. I love this cover. We're in the 80s now, at least probably 1980, if I had to guess. And we're still having some retro, gorgeous painted covers with that purple, because it sticks out on the stands. And then they just gave up. No more painted covers. But this is very important because now this is issue 35, because this is leading up. These books have popped to $60 a piece, which blows my mind, right? They brought in Al Williamson. To me, Al Williamson is one of my favorite writers. When I think of comic book art, Al Williamson's crisp, sort of realistic style is where my mind goes. But I have 2 sets of these already, but this is the adaptation they did in 3 different parts of the Flash Gordon movie of 1980. Okay, he has parts 1 and 3 in here, and I have 2 other sets. These are $60 a piece. So with those 3 books, we're talking $180 right there. Then we have Mandrake the Magician. I already have this one. That's what's so funny. The Scooby-Doo eyes, if you will. I have a buddy, Tim Anderson, who loves the Scooby-Doo eyes on all of these comics. He collects comics that have the Scooby-Doo eyes. You either know what I'm talking about or you don't. And then these Buck Rogers books, these are issue 2, 3, and 4. And they do an adaptation of the Buck Rogers movie. Now, don't be fooled. It wasn't a movie in the theater. You didn't miss anything. This was the TV show movie, right? It was a series. Unless you've been living under a rock, there was a Buck Rogers series. I loved the series when I was a kid. I thought Hawk was the best stuff. Around the year 2000 or somewhere around there, I caught some reruns, probably on Sci-Fi Channel or something, right? And I was like, oof, it was much better in my memory, but we have a Buck Rogers show, right? So these are the Whitman books 2, 3, and 4, where they and apparently the artist on here was a big deal to Gary. So there's 2, 3, and 4 of these. I think I have 1 or 2 of these, and this is a series that I've always wondered why I couldn't find any more in dollar boxes and things like that, right? Well, apparently quite a few of these issues are worth a little bit of money. And what's interesting is that Whitman putting these out, they went on, and there's no number 10. They completely skipped number 10. There is no number 10 Buck Rogers. For whatever reasons, they skipped. They went from 9 to 11. Never made a number 10, right? So that's some of the comics in there, which I find fantastic. Johnny Comet, Ace McCoy. Let me see here. So on the way back, I stopped at an antique shop to get a break because I was very tired. I ended up getting these at an antique shop. I don't know. I think some of these were like, some of them were $2 and $3 a piece, but most of them were $1 a piece. But we got a Tales of the Witchblade half issue from Wizard with the COA. When you got a certificate, it told you exactly where this came from. In Wizard magazines, you could order a half issue from them. They would have a check sheet to mark off, a place to put your check in an envelope, and they would send you a half issue of the month. This one came from Wizard Comics number 71. No idea who worked on it. Marvel Saga number 12. A very important series. I think you ought to get the first 25 issues of. They only made 25 during the 80s, but it was the history of the Marvel universe chronologically, went all the way back to caveman times. And they would go through the Silver Age and cut, copy, and paste and glue and stick and give you the real history of the Marvel universe all the way up to the coming of Galactus. This might be worth a little money because of Mike Turner fans, but this is Witchblade Tomb Raider crossover Wizard half issue from Wizard number 90. And like I said, I never read that. I never really got into Witchblade, never really got into Michael Turner, but he has his fans, and pretty much anything you get a hold of, it's gold, and there's somebody, Mike Turner, that might be willing to grab it from you. These were $2 a piece. I already had these, but I'll grab these. They have the, oh man, what's it called? Cellophate? Can't think of it. Anyway, I'll probably take these out before. They have special covers where you will open them and you will have the pure artwork, and the logo is actually on this sheet of plastic that's over it, right? But this is a two-shot. This is fantastic. This is Marvel Universe Alternaverse. That was short-lived, but it's the last Avengers story by Peter David, and that's Hank Pym on the cover there. And here's part 2 where we have a blind Hawkman. But this is set in the future. It's a 2-part story of the last Avengers story. And then I don't know, I got these. I picked these up. This is issues 102 of Avengers West Coast, formerly West Coast Avengers, before they turned into Force Works. It's the last issues. They were there as an impulse buy. And like I said, there's some other stuff in here. A lot of classic X-Men stuff. Reprints of the daily strips of Mal Williamson work. Great big huge lot of those. And some very cool Comic-Con magazines or something I've never heard of. Is that not cool? That is very cool. So I can't wait to get into those, right? So that's Gary's collection. That's a lot of stuff I got out of there, plus some extras from an antique shop I stopped at on the way home. So like I said, Gary, I'll say it again, they've come to a good home, and it will be appreciated. I got one more box of stuff to show if you want to see it. I'm running out of room in here. Yeah, today I'll be working on the comic book room, getting organized, putting the stuff up, getting it cataloged, that sort of thing. And this one, if you're not that interested in, that's cool, that's all right. But my favorite author is Philip Jose Farmer. His favorite work of mine is the World of Tear series, which you can look up what that is. Gates of Creation. He has a character named Kikaha. He also did Riverworld. He's done a ton of sci-fi books. And then he has the Wald Newton set of books, which is wild because they republished a lot of those books back in like 2010 or 13, 12, something like that. And I've been getting them for $3 to $5 a piece off of eBay. A lot of them are library copies, but they're very clean, which surprised me. And lo and behold, Gary, bless his heart, this was $20. I got this for $20 at the auction, but it's a whole box of Philip Jose Farmer pulps, originals from the 60s and 70s and before and after. And as I was leaving, Scott pointed out he had some hardbacks, right? But it's a whole box of Philip Jose Farmer stuff, right? He got this for $3.50 at some point, but A Woman in a Day. Philip Jose Farmer is very cool because he's one of us. He grew up on the pulps and the radio shows, Doc Savage. He was a fan of all this stuff. The Gates of Creation. This is one of the original printings that started out the World of Tear books that were fantastic. Two Hawks from Earth. He ended up doing a contacting Kurt Vonnegut so he could do a story written by a fictional author that Kurt Vonnegut had created called Kilgore Trout. This has his first book, Flesh. This is 2 books in one. Flesh is his first book, which is pretty racy considering when it came out. And Lord Tiger, which is it's a sort of a Tarzan story set in the real world. We'll just put it that way. It's a bit of a mystery. That's part of the Wald Newton stuff. Just the covers alone. Dare. I've been wanting to read this one. I'll just show you a few here. Okay. A Feast Unknown is where we have a loosely disguised Tarzan fighting a loosely disguised Doc Savage, which turned into a trilogy. And it ties in Jack the Ripper as their father right off the bat. Let's just put it that way. Um, I have never been more uncomfortable ever reading chapter 21 of A Feast Unknown than anything else in my life. It came out in 1968, hyper violent, hypersexual, and it still is edgy today. So, the Wind Whales of Ishmael, where we it's a sequel to Moby Dick, where Ishmael is thrown into the future. To Walt Newton stuff. Lord of the Trees, which is the second part of that trilogy. The Other Log of Phileas Fogg, which is a Walt Newton book. And Walt Newton is where he finds a way to tie in all these great characters. If you think the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, how Alan Moore tied everybody together, well, this one makes them all related. Sherlock Holmes, James Bond, Scarlet Pimpernel, they're all related. They're all related to people that came out of this village, if you will. Yeah. Anyway, I can go on and on, but unless you're into Philip State Farmer, I'm just going to like bore you here and stuff, right? A lot of great stuff to read. I am set for 2 or 3 years with stuff to read and everything like that, right? So the auction itself, if you want to stick around with everything I've shown, basically was bittersweet when I showed up. I didn't really feel like going. I was still tired. I hadn't been sleeping over the week, and it was kind of weird to. I didn't want to see people thumbing through Gary's collection and things. I knew what was going to happen, and my wife was like, "Go! You deserve to go. You need to go." So I set a number in my head of how much I was going to spend, and I also decided exactly the 2-3 things I wanted out of Gary's collection. And I can't believe that I actually got all but one, which is fantastic, right? So when I get there, there's a lot of people already there early. The auction is set to start at 10. It opened the doors up at 8. People were already in there with their notebooks, and they didn't have a catalog like I've been to other places. This is the second collection of a friend who has passed away in 5 years that I've been to like this. The first one was very weird. This one, I was getting a little bit nervous because there's people that was just like, he's got a stack of Dave Stevens stuff over there, and he's got this and that. And all I saw were like, I saw dollar signs, and I'm like, oh man, because Gary cared for this stuff, and I was like, this is going to go to people who aren't going to appreciate it and stuff, right? And it went on. Scott showed up probably 5 or 10 minutes before the auction started, so I was there by myself. I got to go through the boxes, look at a few things, sit down, and there was a guy ended up finding out his name was Bob, sitting in front of us. I was in the second row. He was in the first row. Scott was right beside of me and stuff, right? And the auction started up. Anything that came up for Zeta, anything that came up, I had a good time watching this guy bid. He was passionate. He would just hold his number up, got a few yips out of him and stuff, and he was there for business, right? That guy had to have spent over $2,000 in the first 2 hours easily. And he was getting fantastic stuff, right? Ended up talking a little bit. He has no social media. He drove down from Cleveland, which is about 6 or 7 hours. And I asked him if it was a culture shock being down here. He was like, oh, no, I go to Heroes Con all the time. So the guy's a regular, and he showed up for business. Said he had a van or something to haul stuff in. He already knew that he was going to be, he showed up for business, man. And there's a couple things he was super excited about. He was there all day long. I only hung for about 4 hours because I needed to eat, hadn't slept in days. So Scott and I got to have a little bit of lunch, but it was bittersweet. It ended up being a good time. Because what happened was after worrying about all these people not knowing what they were getting, worrying about all these people getting it for greed and all the wrong reasons and stuff like that, people were respectful when it finally got down there, and they were passionate and they were appreciative of what they got. They couldn't believe everything that Gary had, and they were probably right at the halfway mark when I left. So, Godspeed, Gary. But it just kind of makes me think about the things in our collection and other people's collection, how it's going to outlive us, and it's going to have different owners at some point in time in the future. So here's Gary, who probably bought a lot of this stuff brand new. And of course, he bought things older and things like that. Where did they come from before he had them? Then they lived in Dublin, Virginia for a while. Now he's got a big piece of his collection that's going to be up in Cleveland. You know what I mean? I'm like, the life of I would love to do a story where it's just the life of one comic book, straight off the print, being made off the printer, bought off the stand, like in 1968, and then word has it ended up by 2023. You know, I mean, all the people and all the hands and all the boxes it lived in and things like that. I actually think that, to me, it'd be like Cat's Eye, the story, the Stephen King movie Cat's Eye, where you see this cat coming in and out of people's lives. That would be the comic book. You know, I think that would be a cool story. So it ended up being a really good time. And when Scott and I sat down to eat, and it was probably around 2 o'clock, 2:30, we went out to eat. You know, it was bittersweet, but I was just amazed on how good of a time I ended up having. And Scott had a good time too. It was also the first time we had hung out in person in probably about 2 years, if not more, because of the pandemic. All right. Okay, John C. is all over this. Dennis Hayes has popped in. I'm really disappointed the Wizard Half books aren't worth more. There's one or two that are, you know, that popped a little bit, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It's nothing substantial. Battlestar Galactic Super Special is one of my favorites. Galactica, yeah, we got you. Got you, man. I love Philip Jose Farmer. His Riverworld series is my favorite. Yeah, I have all but one book of the Riverworld series, and I think two or three of them, I don't know, I can't see them, but I think I have two of them in hardback. So yeah, man, that's the haul. I'm probably going to do a shorter video. We have a new webcam for the last month, so it's time for me to play with it. So I'm probably going to do a more precise short video on the antique haul here. Maybe I won't go off talking about things like that. So that was it. So yeah, man, sorry about no show last week, but you know, life happens and people's health were in jeopardy. Literally, no drama there. So you guys be excellent to each other. Thanks for popping in here and have a great weekend, man. Later, guys.